the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your host, Joshua, and today's question is: how can military principles transform the way we approach challenges in everyday lives and in our lives as well? Well, Ian is a retired infantry Marine, to be more precise. He is a perfect guest to answer that question today. He is the author of Lions of Marja, host of Choices, Not Chances podcast, and public speaker who seeks to inspire people to be the light. Bringing his military style and approach to the civilian sector, Ryan seeks to build a more resilient company, community, and nation. And today he's going to share that military resilience principles and how we can transform the way we live our lives. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Absolutely, Joshua. I appreciate you reaching out and having me on, and I'm doing great, man. I look forward to the conversation.
I do look forward to it as well. I mean, Ryan, I always love, first of all, thank you for your service. And I always love talking about, the experiences and the insights from the military as well. And Ryan, before we truly start getting into this, I think it's important to come up with the origin story, the backstory of Ryan Rogers. What inspired you to join the Marine Corps? And as a child, did you always want to be a soldier?
Sure. I don't know. As a kid, I wanted to be a Marine for a while. I played Army Man back in the woods and that kind of thing, but nothing. 9/11 really is what changed me. I was a sophomore in high school, and you know, 9/11 impacted me big time. They rolled a little TV cord into the classroom, and the first tower had already been hit. We watched the second tower hit, and then we watched for a couple hours before everybody went home. Um, People jumping off buildings because of the heat and such. And I don't know, something in me turned and made it very easy for me to make a decision to join and kind of fulfill or attack whatever that yearning inside me was. So, yeah, so I joined right after high school. I made it pretty easy on the recruiter. Um, Wanted to fight. So he put me in September 27th. I left for Paris Island, um, and then remained on the East Coast for 11 years throughout my career.
Wow.
Before which it cut a little bit short. So,
Well, I mean, it was quite the time for a lot of people, a very heavy time and a serious transition for a lot of people's lives. You got into there and you felt like there was some yearning that you needed to fulfill. Once you got in there, did you feel like, I mean, looking back now, do you feel like you fulfilled that yearning somewhat?
yeah, I think, young men fight wars, and then as you get older, you learn different things about them. But
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. I needed to seek justice, and at least in my mind, for 9/11 and for what had happened that day. And I got the chance to go out and make a difference, bring some American resolve. And yeah, so I suppose you could say I did get what I wanted in that aspect. Yeah.
Wow. And right now, today, of course, you apply the same aspects and principles in daily life. Your book, though, Lions of Marja, am I saying that right?
That's
Lions of
correct.
Marja. All right. It chronicles a significant military operation. Well, we love stories in here, Ryan, and literally the second name of the show is Stories. Could you tell us the story of what you talk about in this book and why that particular military operation?
So for me, I needed to write about the experience, and I didn't necessarily think that I was going to share it to the world per se, but I wanted to have it for myself, my family. I wanted to have it for my guys that served with me valiantly. I mean, they were awesome. They did everything they were asked to do in austere conditions. And I wanted to write that down because I had been in the Marine Corps grip. This was my fourth or fifth deployment. And it's like,
Right.
I never seen anything like this. We were doing everything you were supposed to do in combat as a Marine infantryman, and
Mm-hmm.
then some. And so I wanted to have good notes so that I could do justice to the story. So I started taking notes, along the way and keeping the notes to someday put it all together. And that's what I did. So the story is just about a squad, a 13-man squad of Marines, one Navy corpsman, and our experience in Operation Mashtarak. And Operation Mashtarak
Mm-hmm.
was 2009, 2010. President Obama at the
Okay.
time, uh, cleared a significant troop surge at the request of Stanley McChrystal, General, in Afghanistan, and we happened to be part of that for Third Battalion, Sixth Marines. We were Q Company, and it was about Second Squad. Just the things that we endured, the things that we faced, and the enemies that we put down.
Wow. Could you, I mean, of course, if it's possible, and you've already written on the book and you've already talked about it in great length, are you able to tell some of us some of the more key parts that you were able to kind of tell us the story of that operations here on the episode today? And what can you share and what can you not share? I mean, this is very interesting.
I mean, I can share if you have questions about it. It's hard to say to pick one key mission because the whole thing was a key mission.
Right.
From the time we flew in until the time we flew out, there were different missions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
biggest part of I guess the biggest takeaway on this is that
Go ahead.
when given the right resources, Marines, given that fundamental building blocks of resilience and uh, discipline and dedication, when giving that and then thrown in austere environments, they do well. And you can carry that onto your daily life. You can carry that work ethic onto your daily life afterwards. Because
Right, and that's what we'd love to get into today. Of course, it's like you've picked up these resilient principles in the military, and now you're bringing it to the civilian world, so to speak. What are some elements and aspects? You probably have a list, or you have probably have at the back of your mind that you or something of these principles that you always teach your audience and your listeners. What are some of the key resilient principles that you picked up from the military along the way that you are now teaching to your audience and your listeners?
the building blocks to being resilient, you can just go get those. I mean, through the Marine
Right.
Corps, you go through a boot camp and you get completely stripped down of your old identity. You get rebuilt back up with a code of ethics and brotherhood and tribalism, warrior tribe,
Hmm.
warrior tribalism. And so when that build up starts back up, there's no weakness, there's no I'll do it later, there's none of that. It's discipline. It's do exactly what you're
Right.
told, exactly when you're told to do it, and do it the best job that you can do it all the way the first time. Because in
Hmm.
our world, if you don't do all that, people die. The people end up being your
Right.
friends. And then you put your friends, your estates are your friends, and you put your friends in body bags. And so these are lessons that Marines, especially Marine infantrymen, learn the hard way. And that builds
Hmm.
resilience. They learn through training errors and training mistakes, and that builds resilience. Um, Knowing that it doesn't matter how you feel about something, sometimes the mission is just the mission, and you got to keep putting one foot in front of the next foot and keep on moving. Because a lot of people like to get caught up in their feelings and how they feel about certain things, and sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just like, no, pick your pack up, put it on your back. You know this job, and let's push.
Hmm.
That's what it is. So that the tenacity of mission accomplishment is something that drives work ethic.
do you think that resilience can only be picked up through experience, or is there, do you teach some ways that these principles can be, can be applied, or that I can gain resilience even just as a civilian?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anything, I don't think that there's anything out there that when you talk about it and I share with you my experience, you're definitely going to get something out of that. Some of the
Hmm.
resilience that you're not going to gain is like, like my friends died. You don't know my friends, you know what I mean? So you can't build the resilience to my loss through my storytelling. Um, and you don't always need that, right? But like something else would be a little bit more compatible would be like I could tell you about how my mistakes in combat affected me or my mistakes in business affected me. And then you could learn through my mistakes, the resilience, obviously, to get back up. I could share that part. But you also learn from me what not to do if you're going to have that same situation. Um, and so I think there's a lot to be learned in that aspect. And it just depends on which, what perspective you want to learn something from. If you're a warrior, it's a
Right.
different conversation.
I'd love to get into that. I mean, this is I'd love to get into that through the episode today, because this is we talk about bringing these principles of resilience and how military principles that you can bring into real life. If you were to pick three principles you think that you always teach or that you always talk about, what would be those things that a civilian can apply in their lives without having to experience or go through military?
Um, resilience is one, tenacity in your work ethic is two, and then honesty. Honesty would, you know, rate among the top of them. If you're not honest, nobody's going to trust you. And if you're not honest in the business world, at least with yourself and with your team, you're not going to get far with any team. Anybody that has a team, the team is built on trust. The team is built on a mutual trust and a mutual assurance to mission accomplishment. And if you don't have trust, you don't have that loyalty to each other and that trust between you, it never works out.
I love
Somebody,
that. I mean, that's great, and
something
it's
always
important.
unwinds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important in real life, important in any aspect of life. Could you, I mean, I love that you pointed out these three things. Could you relate it to anything, any story that you went through in the military, when it comes to all these three aspects and principles? I believe they're not just, in the individual basis, but I feel like these stories will allow us to relate it to not just our lives, but our business and our careers as well. For those three things that you mentioned, can you relate it to any military story that you've gone through and why you picked those particular principles?
Sure. So for resilience, like I said, resilience is something that's built. And, you're gonna get thicker skin. You're gonna be more resilient to different situations, depending on the situations that you go through. A resilient story would be, let's say my corpsman over in Afghanistan. It was his first deployment, and he hadn't built much resilience yet. He didn't have thick skin yet, and we're getting ready to do a main invasion, and he's geeking out. I can't do this. He's trying to take his rank off. He's trying to anything he can do to get away from, what was the inevitable, you know, coming of war in a couple of days. And he's just kind of really losing it. And step by step, I was able to, kind of take him under the wing, walk with him. My guys were able to walk with him and talk with him and get him prepared, and then he made the push and he invaded on helicopters. And about a, week and a half in, he'd already treated multiple casualties, both on our side and on the other side. And his resilience is growing and his confidence is growing, right? Every single time he takes a hit, he's getting back up. The resilient man falls 17 times, gets up 18, right? It's okay to get knocked down.
Mhm.
You have to keep on moving and moving and moving.
Yes.
So by the end of the deployment, you couldn't do anything to this guy, to this Navy corpsman that would stop him. He was sure of who he was. He was sure of his job. He was sure of his path and his
Mm.
direction in life. And when you have that, that builds resilience. That's resiliency, tenacity, and work ethic. I mean, When I mean tenacity, I mean every single time you're on the job, you are getting it done. And that doesn't mean you're running around pointing at other people saying, ha ha, I do it better and I'm doing it faster. That's not it. That's just that work ethic. Doesn't matter what other people are doing. Doesn't matter what other people are saying. I'm going to get this job done as efficiently and as quickly as I can, and I move on to the next job. And when you're like that, people see that very quickly. And usually there's two crowds. There's either the crowd that wants to steel sharpen steel and they want to jump on with you and just keep on going and getting better and getting faster. And then there's that crew of people that's going to come up to you and tell you, hey, what are you doing over there, hero? You're making everybody look bad. Those are the people that I love. I love the people that say, hey, you're making everybody look bad. I say, yeah, you're making you look bad. And I nose to the grindstone and keep running circles around. Eventually, one or two things happens. They quit or they get better. So that's tenacity and work ethic. And then honesty. I mean, being honest and being truthful with the team. It's age old. There's 100 to 1 of my stories of every story where loyalty and honesty crumbled a team from the outside. You could start at the Federalist number 10 papers, where it was a sect of people that they wrote about, that would crumble the inside, and they've been writing about it since then. Thank God it hasn't happened in the nation, but I mean, I don't have too many loyalty stories or lack thereof of trust from combat, but I mean, from business standpoint, I mean, it could be something as easily as, me and you shake hands on a deal, you give me your word, and you send the contract over, you give me your word in writing, and then you renege on that contract. Everybody loses in that, and you could do it. It's just your word. But when the deal falls through and now my company's got to jump through a million red hoops to recuperate what we thought, we were going to get on this. We're obviously not going to get. We got to see what we can do about stock and inventory. And then you screw the pooch on me, and now what? I got to listen to you, and I got to change my schedule for you again. I got to so I have a big problem with with that side of truth telling and honesty and loyalty. So,
or lack of truth telling thereof, right? And it's always,
right.
it's always important in any kind of situation, not just in the military life. When you were transitioning from military to civilian life, I mean, it has its own sets of challenges. What advice would you give veterans facing this transition, or more likely to be precise, what advice would you give when it comes to transitioning from a military life to a business life, starting your own business? Is there any resources or strategies that you found most effective?
Yeah, I would definitely say find a mentor, find somebody who's kind of at least blazed a trail similar to the one you're trying to go down. It doesn't have to be the same. Like when I was trying to write my first book, I was watching YouTube. I was reading everything I could read. I'm on X and Twitter trying to figure out who's done this before, how did they do it, who did they use, because there's multiple options, right? And I didn't really have a mentor. As far as that's concerned, so I self-published and I found a mentor that could walk me through self-publishing, right? And so that would be a huge is just having a mentor. I read a lot, so I read a lot of Ryan Holiday and talks about the philosophers and philosophy, right?
Yes.
And anything that I see once, I'm infinitely better at doing it in the future. And so
Interesting.
That's what I like to do. I like to try to see what the future's going to be. I don't know where we were going with this. I lost my train of thought.
Right. Precisely. Yes. Well, you do have your choices, not chances podcast, and you're trying to look into like I said, the transitioning from the military to the civilian life.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
this
yeah.
podcast? Yeah. How much does this podcast should help you in that kind of transition? And do you feel like it applies in your daily life as well? And what motivated you really to start the Choices Not Chances podcast to bridge
So
that gap?
so the podcast was it basically came on the heels of the book. You know, I thought that I'd sell 200 or 300 copies. They said that's what average, self-published authors do. And then, it sold way, way more than that. And then I had people reaching out, different
Wow.
parents reaching out, thanking me for putting into words what their kids never talked about, and just different
Wow.
people. And then gotten like different hitters that were there on the same battlefield that I didn't know. And,
Wow.
then past guys, just kind of, reaching out saying that it was helpful. And so I was like, well, shit, I started with a lot of heroes. I got giants that live all around me that are my friends.
Yep.
I'll launch a podcast. And another big reason is you got Sean Ryan, you got Jocko, you got Andy Stump, you got a lot of these guys, and none of them are covering Marines primarily. The Navy SEALs are covered, the Rangers and SF are covered. Nobody was really covering Marines, so I wanted to have an outlet for regular infantry Marines, not special guys, but guys that are special. You know what I mean? Guys that go over there and get it done. And so it started like that. And I just started telling those stories. And he says it helped for me. Yeah, if nothing else, and sometimes it is nothing else other than purpose. Guys like me struggle with purpose. I think everybody struggles with purpose, but guys like me struggle with purpose when we transition, and veterans struggle with purpose when they transition. It's a fact. It kills them.
Right.
You go from, making a geopolitical difference on a world stage to then feeling like you don't make any difference.
Precisely.
And so the resource is make sure that you don't feel that way. And if you feel like you don't have a purpose, you need to keep fighting. Give yourself a purpose. And if you say, I just don't know how I can reinstill purpose, then it's like my recommendation to you is find something that you can do for somebody else that you absolutely expect nothing in return of. Go help one person and don't expect anything from them, because that is selfless service, and that is what you are lacking. See, what they don't tell you is when you're 18 and you're on the footprints, at Paris Island or San Diego, or you're getting ready to give for your nation, what they don't tell you is you are serving a purpose so much higher than yourself that you don't even understand it. And you might go 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15, 25, and if nobody ever tells you that, with the day that you leave the service, you're sitting at home and a piece of you is void. You have a gap and you don't know what it is. I've had guys come to me, I didn't even go to combat. I just got, but you served a higher purpose than yourself. You served a purpose you served people that will never know you and you will never know. And you gave them this nation gives them freedom at the shoulders of 18-year-olds. So you had a purpose, and then on day one, your body, yourself, your being knows that that's not being served anymore. And so you have to go out there and find that again. So for me, the transition for me was rough. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out that it was purpose I was lacking, not anything else. Wow. And there's a million things you can do to derive that, where purpose derives. You can do a big brother, big sister program. You could do, there's a million organizations out there that are helping other people that you don't have to put your name on. You want to put your name on, put it on there, but selfless service is what they lack.
Selfless service is what they lack. And you put it so perfectly, because now I can just imagine, like, damn, it must be truly hard to, of course it's difficult to suddenly just all of a sudden, like, whoa, what am I going to do with my life now? Like, I've had this purpose in the military my entire life, and now I have to do nothing. I've got nothing. It's just a very difficult transition to make, but also you're communicating in such a way that, wow, I can actually find purpose, by doing selfless service. I love that. How has it, what was the story behind the podcast name, and how does it relate to, purpose? How does it relate to transitioning? It says your podcast title is Choices, Not Chances. And I believe it feels like it's your choice to make that selfless service, but does it go deeper than that? What is the story behind the podcast name?
Yeah, so the name comes from, oddly enough, when I was a Marine. I talk about it in the opening. It's called The Catalyst. It's in the on the YouTube. Essentially, Colonel now, Lieutenant Colonel now, Lieutenant Emmanuel. Then he had control of he was a platoon commander for my platoon. He would constantly give a speech, for the weekend or when he's talking to the guys. We have safety briefs and such. And he would say, it would be, that was part of the speech. He'd say, 99% of the time, it's the choices you make, not the chances you'll put in. So if you want to have good outcomes, you must make good choices. And if you're going to make bad choices, then the chances of you having a bad outcome are way higher. And so I wanted to establish a name that talked about what choices are being made and what chances guys are being put in. And then really just drive home, if you're one of those guys out there that's make a better choice, make a better choice. You can't wait for the perfect chance to scoop you up. You have to deliberately make an action plan, deliberately make positive, correct choices that align with who you want to be and who you are going to be and where you are going to be. And if you never stop and aim, and that's another thing I try to tell people that are lost. It's like, if you're transitioning, you need to stop and think about, who do you want to be? And honestly, God, I don't know. Then say this. When you die, what do you want your eulogy to say? He sat on that couch and did nothing. He was a Mason. He was a Marine. He was he's an artist. What do you want to say? And so most people say, well, I want people to think this of me. Okay, well, what aligns with people thinking that of you? Okay, X. Okay, now you got X, right? Well, once you have X, once you have the goal, then it's just an action plan. And an action plan simply is, I have the target. Now I'm going to aim at that target, and I'm going to make, let's call it 3 to 5 steps.
That's it.
That get me closer to that. And then if you do that action plan, line up another action plan. Okay, now we're halfway. I need to get to the next piece, right? Or you can have a big action plan. But for me, the biggest part is, what's X? What does X look like? For me, it looks like influencing and inspiring people. And so I made an action plan. And writing that book, so I made an action plan. Gotta go to school. Don't know how to write. Gotta get better. Gotta find out who's podcasting. Learn everything about it. Got to figure out mics and stands and cameras and screens and machines, right? But there's things, because I knew what I wanted. I could aim at that. Like, I knew I need to aim at all of that shit right there, because all of that falls into this. A lot of people just get overwhelmed because they have such a big choice. It's like, what do you want to be? And it's like, you could be anything. And so if you have no idea what you want to be, that's like being in the desert with nowhere to go. You don't know a direction. You're just out there. And that's hard, right? But if you at least have an idea of where you want to go, then you can start aiming properly and aligning your action plan.
Yeah, I love that, because it's always purpose, right? What are you looking at? Like, whatever that purpose is, I think is important to have that goal, rather, is to just make whatever that goal, the goal might change, the goalpost might move, but it's important to always be aiming for that. And that is what I think, like, it's rough. It's rough to not have that. It just makes you feel lost. Sometimes it's too big, sometimes it's too small. But again, I think it's better than not have no goal whatsoever. It to me, it reminds me, it goes back to that video with the New York Times, right? That the inches that matter. You mentioned this because it doesn't matter. It doesn't. If you have that goal, you're looking at that target. It doesn't matter, but you need to fight it. You need to get through it, and inch your way towards that goal. And it's where you were. I understand that was during that time where you were facing stiff resistance of the Taliban fighters. It's a huge desert, an open desert, and it's just, it must be unnerving. It must be like, wow, what do I do? What can I do here? And the New York Times video talks about the inches that you guys made, the progress that you guys made. How do you feel like that relates to having goals and having, like that transitioning the lessons that you took from that into real life?
Yeah, I mean, and you always have to have goals. You have to have goals. And Like I say a lot of times to my children, how do you eat an elephant? And I say it so many times that now they know the answer and they just all echo it back, right? Like, hey, how do you eat an
Right,
elephant?
right.
One bite at a time, Dad. Right, one bite at a time, 1 inch at a time. Anything we're doing all the way, and if that means I get 1% better today or 100% better, it's better than yesterday. And that's what I try to tell my
Yes,
people is,
yes.
hey, 1%
Hmm.
better every day. Tomorrow, 1% better. Tomorrow, 1% better. And then just readjust fires. Make sure you're covering down on the new targets, the new goals, and then 1% better. Continue to push. In the desert,
Yes.
in that video, you know, it talks about gaining inches on the enemy, but it also talks about war being a game of inches. The saw gunner shot in the shoulder,
Oh,
4 inches from his throat would have took his life, and 1 inch to the left, it would have hit the joint and just
mhm.
shattered everything he had up there. So he was lucky it just went straight through and missed by a mere
Wow.
group of inches. So yeah, different meanings on different sides of that, but you gotta, if you want to be anything, it's the easiest time to be anything. You could be anything you want because there's a swell of people out there that don't want to work and don't work hard. So just come, put one foot in front of the other, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter what you want to do. Be the hardest worker out
Yeah,
there and never give up. Start there. Start there for 6 months and see where it goes.
that's it. Wow. Put your one foot forward, inch your way towards that goal, whatever that goal is. Just move your way towards it and see where it goes. I love that. I love it's a great reminder. And again, it applies the same principles that you picked up in the military, just with a more simplified way of like, hey, your goal, your purpose has changed, but that doesn't mean it's not as big or as small, it's not any lesser because now you're doing it for yourself. I love the message that
Mm.
you talk about. I love that you continue to teach this, to, in your speaking engagement. I understand that one of the things that you also mentioned is like to be the light, and that is one of the messages that you teach today. Ryan, just to sort of wrap this up and that final bit of wisdom, what does that mean to you? Why do you say people to be the light?
I think that everybody has the opportunity to use, light or darkness. You want to be the light, you can be the dark. I spent a lot of my life around darkness. I spent a lot of my life being the darkness to other people. Um, and now I want to be the light. I want everybody to be the light. It's so much better when you can breathe and you're not worried about doing the wrong thing and you're giving back, to people who are less fortunate to you. And that's the light. That's the light. Am I talking about don't cuss? I don't care what you say. Be a good human being to other human beings. That's what it means.
Yes,
It just means
that's
be
it.
good to other people. Lift them
Yes,
up.
yes.
Let your
Yep.
light shine because there's a lot of people whose light isn't so shine right now. And
Yeah.
it's contagious though. If I shine around you, then maybe your brightness comes up a little. And if enough of us shine around you, then you're back to shining again. You're giving the world
That's
your
it.
light.
That's it.
We need the light. I mean, it's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if it's not politics, it's not emotional, it's not. We need human beings to be nice to each other
Yes.
and be kind to each other. And that's what it means.
I love that. I love that. You just need to be the light, encourage others. If you're being a light, you encourage others to be the light as well, and to just be, just start spreading that kind of positivity around, kindness and relating to each other. And I think that just grows the light even more. I love that. I love that message, Ryan. Ryan, I'd love to give you the opportunity. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you? Where are you most active in? We'd love to stay connected. Let us know.
Yeah, man. You can find my content. Actually, if you look up my link tree, if you, I've sent it to you, tag it to the show.
Yep,
But
yep.
you can find
Hmm.
me at Ryan Nicholas Rogers. You can find me at Ryan Rogers on Facebook. Choices Not Chances podcast on Instagram. Ryan Rogers on X. Lions of Marja on Amazon.com. And Choices Not Chances podcast on all platforms: Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere you find podcasts.
It's fantastic. To all our audience listeners out there, of course, you can check all of those out. Choices Not Chances podcast, and look for Ryan on all his socials and everything. Ryan, I mean, it's been great. I would love to have longer time with you. Maybe we could do this again and talk about more about your missions. But Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Ryan, thank you so much, and to all our audience listeners out there. See you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.